Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Brand Federation's Beer and Brands. I'm Matt Williams, and I'm here as usual with my partner Kelly O'Keefe.
Matt.
But we
Everyone.
have a special guest here.
Hello.
Andrew Allen is a senior strategist at Brand Federation, and he is here because he represents the youth.
Yes, that's me.
Congratulations.
That's what everybody says about me.
You're the youth.
The young
We
ones.
are the youth. Yeah.
No, Andrew is here because what
We're
we want to
aiming
talk
for
about.
those demographics.
That's right. We're just
Exactly.
trying to bring a little, like,
Broadening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, somebody has to do it. Like, we're way too
Yeah, we can't play it.
separate topic. Anyway, Andrew is here because we want to talk about a thing that is really interesting in the marketing world, and it's the convergence of marketing and culture. And it happens to be a culture that you're really into and that you know a lot about. So we wanted to bring you in and help us talk about this. And it revolves around the band Geese.
Yes.
Not Goose.
Not Goose.
Because there is a band that is a singular goose, but we're not talking about that. We're talking
Also
about
very
not a solo.
Geese, right? Geese. So, Andrew, what is going on with Geese,
Yes.
and why do we care as marketers?
It's a great question. So, Geese is a band from New York City, and over the past 18 months or so, they and their lead singer as well, Cameron Winter, have...
Nice T-shirt.
Yeah,
by the
thank
way.
you very much, with his feet on
I
there.
think we know where you stand on this.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But Geese and Cameron Winter have both had kind of an exponential rise in popularity. They've both released albums that have been very critically acclaimed, and they've been growing and growing and growing. They're selling out tours. They're actually coming to Richmond in a few months at the Iron Blossom Festival, if you're interested. But this
Of course, I have tickets.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Geese fan.
Big, yeah, we're Geese fans over here. But no, this all culminated in a Saturday Night Live performance earlier this year, and it seemed like things are going really, really great for the band. And then a couple months after that, there was an article that was posted on Substack by a musician and a journalist whose name is Eliza McLam, and she talked a little bit about a marketing firm called Chaotic Good. Now, Chaotic Good offers a variety of different services, but one thing that they provide is something called trend simulation. So the idea there is they work through TikTok and other social media platforms, and basically they move the algorithm in the way that their clients would like. So let's say an artist performed on, I don't know, Saturday Night Live, and 100 people posted that was the worst video they had ever seen, the worst performance on Saturday Night Live ever. Chaotic Good comes in and has 200 of their accounts come in and say, well, you know, that was the best performance I've ever seen. So people start thinking, oh, I got to see what this is. I got to know what this is all about. I got to follow this band, essentially. And a list of the roster of clients for this firm was posted, and among many other clients, one of the people who was listed on there was Geese. So, you know, Geese is a very polarizing band. I really like the band. Matt, we've talked about this. Yeah, not so much.
Not so much.
But it led to a lot of discussion around Geese, around, you know, oh, are they really that popular? Should they be, commanding all the attention that they are? A lot of people weighed in on this, and the one article that was posted that I think really caught my attention was from Wired, and it talked about the idea of Geese being a psyop. So that was kind of what I thought we could all talk about today.
Okay, so very interesting. As you all know, whether you're fans of Geese or not, if you follow music, Geese has blown up.
Mhm.
Like, they are a big, big deal. And it's really interesting to hear anything in marketing described as a psyop. Like, that's what made our ears prick up here, which is like, okay, psyop, as we know or may not know, a psychological operation. And it's what the CIA and the KGB do to manipulate populations or sources, or like, it's a super nefarious, manipulative thing.
That's
And
right.
when somebody like Wired comes out
Often
with
for misinformation.
yes, that misinformation,
Yeah.
Some bad stuff goes on with psyops. So when Wired comes out with an article that says, is marketing a psyop? We need to talk about this.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know, Kelly, is marketing a psyop?
Boy, that's tough. I'll say this: some marketing probably is a psyop.
Yeah. Does this feel like a psyop to you?
Well, I think we have to look at whether it's a psyop or not. To me, depends in part on whether or not the consumer knows they're being marketed to.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about authentic marketing. fear on fear and brands. And authentic marketing means that we're being honest. And it's not honest if I believe that I'm hearing from dozens, maybe hundreds of raving fans of an organization. And what I'm really hearing from are people who are being paid to share positive opinions about something which they may or may not care about at all.
Mm-hmm.
That does start to be manipulative, and I think leans into that Psyop territory. It's not new.
No,
It's not new.
and we were talking a little about this, but things like this in the recording industry have existed for a really long time. I mean, since there have been recording labels and A&Rs basically trying to get their bands played on radio stations or even onto something like Saturday Night Live. So this kind of thing has existed for a long time. I think now that we're entering into, kind of the world of the algorithm and the world of AI, it's just starting to take a slightly different frame. And I think the lines of what's appropriate and what's not are starting to get a little bit hazy. I would say.
It's a tough one because I take your point about authenticity in the form of like, I know this is a marketing message and I can take it in and synthesize it in my own mind as such.
Right.
And I'll know whether I should be skeptical or not skeptical about it, or whether I want to accept it or not. I think about it differently when I feel like I'm getting a peer-to-peer reaction about a performance on the radio, on Saturday Night Live, or a song or whatever it is, even if it's a beer. I take it in differently. The hard thing, I think, is as a marketer, if I take the other side of this, is more and more, that's where the opinions are being formed. And if I'm a marketer, I need to go where the opinions are being formed, and I need to play by the rules of that space. And the rules of that space, if I'm chaotic good, are put some opinions out there that serve the interests of my client, and put enough of them out to move the algorithm, because that's how this space works.
Yeah. And something interesting from that article by Eliza McLam, she's a journalist, but also a musician. And she actually mentioned in the article, you might think she's a little bit more critical of it, but she said, hey, if my recording label was able to do something like this, I would be all for it. So she's not necessarily saying, hey, this is wrong, we should not listen to Geese. She's saying, hey, this is just kind of the way that the world works for a lot of musicians, and it's just something that kind of we need to be aware of, I guess.
Oh, everybody's doing it.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Doing it,
I
so
remember
guess
Lance
need to,
Armstrong,
too.
I think, said that.
Oh, did he?
So I think I know what side you're on.
I'd like to be a counterpoint to that because, and especially since I am representing not the voice of youth here.
Sure.
I remember a time when there was a significant scandal in music, in radio. It was the payola
Scandal, right?
And people would hear a song played again and again and again and raved about by their local DJ, thinking, well, I trust this DJ's judgment, and he's playing it a lot. It must be good. Little knowing that DJ had a wad of cash that he was paid to do that. And the DJ might well have gone out in the back behind the studio and vomited on the ground every time that song was played. But he was making the cash, and so he manipulated his audience.
Yep.
And that scandal came out, and we enacted laws to prevent from doing that.
Yeah, very interesting.
And so I think there's a fine line here. It is, I think, perfectly fine if you're an artist to reach out to your fans and say, hey, I hope you'll make some noise on social media. If you like what I just did, make some noise on social media. This happens on award shows. It happens on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
And that's okay, I think, because what they're doing is reaching out to people who love them to say, share that love. We do that with brands all the time. But to reach out to people who may not like them and say, pretend that you like me and I'll pay you, that crosses a line into dishonesty.
Yeah.
And I think if you're building a reputation for your music based on dishonesty, I mean, how good could your music be?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So here's another way to think about this, and I'm interested in what your guys' take is on this.
Sure.
What does it mean for the media outlets, for Instagram, TikTok, X, you name the social media outlet, if this becomes so prevalent that I don't know which of their content is a psyop and which of their content is genuine? At some point, if I'm the CEO of Instagram, am I going, okay, I'm not cool with this because this is undermining the credibility of the space that I run.
Well, my feeling would be at that point, you probably have some people who used to engage with your platform who are starting to say, I mean, they're starting to worry the same thing. They're starting to say, if I can't trust what of this is real and what of it is meant to make me think a certain way, I'm going to go, maybe this is a bad example, but I'm going to go to the record store and talk to the guy behind the counter there, who I assume is not being paid or is not having to deal with a payola situation. But I'm going to try and find things on a more analog basis, is what I would guess.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the challenges that we have right now with modern media, which is that more and more consumers are feeling like they can't trust the feed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and they continue to seek for a feed that they can rely on. And the period of time that they can rely on each new wave of, well, okay, Twitter sucks now. It's a cesspool. I'm going to go somewhere else. The times are getting shorter and shorter.
Right.
The problem, and why this is actually a problem for marketers and not an opportunity for marketers, is because we need those feeds.
Yeah.
We need to be able to communicate with customers about products and services that might actually benefit their lives or sound good. And if we can no longer do that because the consumer believes that they're being manipulated
Mm-hmm.
anytime they turn on, if they in fact read those articles in Wired that say marketing is a psyop, if they go up to a bar and a pretty young woman next to them says you ought to try Stoli, and they think that pretty young woman is paid, which by the way she may well be.
That happened.
It happened.
Yeah.
It cuts all of the channels that we might otherwise use to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes cynicism turn them off.
Yeah. So we need to defend not only the mechanisms of communication from the perception that it might become a psyop, we need to defend the media so that we can maintain the integrity of the channels by which people get this information.
That's right.
I mean, the whole thing can fall apart.
If you
If
think
the
about
content's
this
not
as-
trustworthy and the channel's not trustworthy, what am I doing?
how we get messages across.
Yeah.
Right. The plumbing that carries messages across in today's world is social media, it's digital media, it's broadcast media, and other tools like that.
Yep.
And if all of them become toxic, if all of them become polluted by more falsehood than reality, we've lost the ability to send messages to those who really could benefit from the messages.
Yep. Very, very interesting. Here's the third question that's wrapped up in this conversation. It's so interesting. What does it mean when a publication like Wired puts a headline on an article that says, "Is marketing a psyop?" Like, what does that say about the state of trust in marketing in general in the world?
Not good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty easy question.
Right. No, I think, I don't know. It feels like it just speaks to, I think we had some statistics here, but this is all kind of coming at a time when there is more distrust around all of this than there ever has been.
Yeah.
Whether that's from Wired or, from Twitter or even from publications that are generally considered trustworthy, like the New York Times. I think it leads to a moment where people can basically convince themselves of anything, regardless of what the true information is out there. And I think back to this Geese example. I think when that came out, people that are fans of the band would say, "Oh, well, this is just somebody trying to play down their success. I know that I really like this band authentically. This band matters to me."
Mm-hmm.
And then people who dislike the band come in and say, "Aha, this is the proof that I needed. This is basically what points to the proof that I was right.
But I was right. They're not good enough.
They're
to
not a
stand on
good
their
band.
own.
I know
Yeah.
exactly what's right here." So
Right.
it's just, kind of these things feeding each other again. It's sort of what it feels like to me.
It is. I'll have to say this to anyone from the band Geese who's watching this, and if you are, please let us know. 'Cause that
Hello,
would be
Cameron.
Yes.
Super cool. Super cool.
Big fan.
We think your music, well, 2 out of 3 of us think your music is okay. But you should think your music is okay enough to get it out into circulation without having to manipulate people or pay them for that opinion. It's not a good look.
No, it actually throws so much more responsibility back on people who are conscious of this, practitioners in the marketing space who are conscious of maintaining the credibility of the discipline. And I hope the three of us are in that camp. But
Yes.
it just becomes harder and harder for people who care about that to be able to fight against the tide of potential deception out there in the channels, in the content, in the agencies who are populating the channels with the content. So if the people from Chaotic Good were sitting next to you, Kelly,
Right.
you'd probably tell them what you just said to the camera, which is stop doing
You're better
this.
than
Yeah.
this.
Don't do it.
You're actually undermining the credibility of your client. You're undermining the credibility of the channels you're running things in, and you're ending up kind of destroying the discipline that you're trying to build your company on.
Yeah, there's a term for that, and you don't want to foul the place you sleep.
You don't want to do that thing where you sleep or where you eat.
That's
Yes,
correct. Yeah.
exactly.
I think
Exactly.
I know what you're saying there.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting. There's so many factors kind of bound up in this conversation in terms of credibility of marketing, and where's the line between deception and just taking full advantage of the technology or the insights into how people consume information. It's just very, very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Naughty.
Let us know what you think. Is marketing a psyop? Is Geese great? The majority of you are probably going to say yes. I just can't get there, but good for them.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the credibility of the channels and the information that we're putting out there as marketers? What's our responsibility? We'd love to hear from you. So put your thoughts in the comments below. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk about it.
Love to hear from you.
But that's it for this conversation about marketing psyops. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
I know what you're all thinking, which is, why are those guys drinking non-alcoholic beer on Beer and Brands? Well, the answer is we have a client meeting in about 15 minutes. So sometimes cooler heads prevail.
Every now and then.
But
It's
thanks
still
for
pretty
joining
good.
us. That wraps up another Brand Federation Beer and Brands for Kelly, Andrew, and I'm Matt. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.